Hello, bonjour, mes amis, my one beers. How are you? Hope you're cool. Hope you're cool. Guess what? Guess what? Guess what? We are at the midway point of our semester. We are at week 9, module 9. Whoa! We're halfway. Whoa! Whoa! So let's get into it. Let's get into it. So, hopefully you enjoyed the lecture on textual analysis, since what's coming up is predicated upon that. This whole thematic unit is based on that. Entertainment as political. Cool. So check out what we have ahead. We have Crinovan 3 due by Sunday. We have we got a new paper. We got a new paper. Hey. Entertainment as political. The brainstorm's due by Sunday. And let's get into it. So here we are, 9. All right. So check out the other video for more on the prompt itself. This video is just going to be on the logistics for this week's module. So if we click here, essay particularities, this is the stuff from last week in case you want to revisit, which, since what we're doing with textual analysis is predicated upon that, I'm including that here. So it's still stuff from last week. Here's the prompt for the essay. And student sample essays. I know that as a student, I always loved when teachers gave me a model rather than just saying, hey, here's the prompt, do the assignment. I was like, oh man, can I see what it could potentially look like? That's what this is, so check it out. All right, so here, the brainstorm. Brainstorming is an important part of the writing process, my friends. Okay, for those of you who are good learners with reading, who learn well by reading, you'll enjoy this. So here's the instructions. So remember from the textual analysis lecture how we looked at the posters, and we kept on doing this chart of denotation and connotation. We're doing it again, my friends. This time, though, it's going to be for your selected cultural artifact. You're going to write it in there. And yeah. So just like we saw last week, remember, denotation is just surface level meaning. So when you take notes, generally it's like denotations that you're writing down. Like if there's a cool quote, or like let's say you're watching a movie, right? And you're taking notes because that's what you want. That's what you're thinking of doing your cultural artifact on. You're like every time that the character gets angry, everything goes red. Or maybe you're watching like a quirky anime episode, and anytime the character gets full of like passion or something, the cars are red, the buildings behind them are red, or whatever. You're like, oh, you could write that down. Things going red. So that's all denotations. Like you can be like, the villain has a scar or something. I don't know. So yeah, as you're taking notes, that's denotation. And for each thing that you consider, for each denotative detail, you're gonna also consider connotative implication, really. Connotative, because connotative details, remember, that's deeper level meaning. So that's when you've applied deconstruction and analysis, textual analysis. This is when you consider like, okay, like if you're looking like at a plot point, like if the movie ends a certain way, well, in fiction, the resolution is immensely important, because ultimately that's the takeaway that you as a viewer or / reader are left with. That being said, hey, there's your takeaway message, and that's when you consider, okay, then the implications. Okay, well, if this is the message that the director wanted me to glean, or the reader wanted me to glean, so what? The implications of that. Is anything at stake? Is a certain group celebrated, or what idea celebrated? What's vilified? So what? Just like we did with the textual analysis. So okay, so there's two parts for this. Number one is making this denotation to connotation chart, but also here's the other half. A thesis, you need to make a working thesis. If you only do the chart, then you can only get half points. You got to also do the working thesis. So here's an example. I don't know if you remember the Lorax picture book. Oh, by the way, picture books are really, really good to work with. They're fun. Okay, so look. For this, I did this for the Lorax. So introduce the source, obviously. So in the story entitled The Lorax by Dr. Seuss, the writer forwards a perspective of eco-criticism. Through this view, the ideal of industry is vilified by way of the antagonist, who is known as the Onceler. Conversely, the idea of nature conservation is celebrated, as embodied by the story's protagonist, known as the Lorax. This message for the importance of nature conservation is just as significant as it was today as it was back in 1971 when Dr. Seuss wrote this story. Okay, so this is just a working thesis. Remember, your thesis should be grounded upon a connotation. And don't just tell me, here's what happens in the Lorax. You just tell me plot points. Like, what? Why? No. Like, is there a deeper message? Is there maybe a historical connection? Is your cultural artifact, let's say it's a picture book. Maybe it's representing a particular historical time period. Now, how is it representing it? Say how it's representing. Because remember, a thesis is a claim, right? As opposed to here's what happens in the story. No. So like here, I'm like, okay, here. The larger message is one of eco-criticism, where the environmental conservation is hoisted on high, and that's what's celebrated, and the importance of protecting our planet, right? So then, after you say that, after you make your claim about your cultural artifact, then you say how your cultural artifact accomplishes that feat, right? How they do that, how they reflect it. In this case, as I said, okay, the protagonist embodies the ideal values, right? And that's how Dr. Seuss does it. It's just a working thesis. I could have done a lot more, but it's like the whole point is like make your claim, that is grounded upon connotation, and then say how your cultural artifact reflects that, how it accomplishes whatever you just claimed. And then this is the so what, right? Why does it matter? Why is it important? Okay. So esas son las instrucciones. Okay, here's the worksheet. Check this out. This is what you're going to fill. Here's the chart. Write your cultural artifact here. Remember, just like what I talked about in the prompt, you want to focalize your attention as much as possible. So, if you're going to do One Punch Man, that anime, choose one episode, right? If you're going to do it, The Twilight Zone, choose one episode, Okay, so here, write your cultural artifact, or a movie, or whatever. So write your cultural artifact here, and write denotative details, which is literally, guys, real talk. I recommend that you take a sheet of paper, get a pen, and just take notes as you're watching your movie or rereading the short story or just going through your cultural artifact, essentially. And then afterward, return to it and then consider, okay, I noticed that the music gets really ominous every time. I don't know. Any time that this character comes up, what's the indirect suggestion of that? Okay, well, maybe this is just a sketchy person who maybe there's foreboding, like some foreshadowing for somehow this character is going to harm the protagonist or play an instrumental role in just really upending the harmony in the story or something. So these are just loose brainstorm notes. So that's where you're going to be denotation and connotation, and here's your working thesis. And then after you do that, you just submit it, and submit it in. Next one, you'll be like, all right, Mr. Godoy, I think I'm kind of getting this. Can I get some more practice? Oh, of course. Here's an application. Like I said, I love picture books. Dr. Seuss is awesome for this, for textual analysis. So, okay, literally, take a sheet of paper, take a pen, watch this cartoon, write down the things that you notice, like golden quotes, the music, the colors, the names of the characters, what's actually happening that draws your attention, that catches your eye. You know, what's the conflict in the story? How is that resolved? Then after that, you know, select, you know, some of those details and consider connotations too, just like this. And let's see. Here's this chart we were talking about. Yeah, the same chart we were looking at. And then you're going to create a working thesis, right? So it's like, all right, so I just watched this cartoon. It's not very long, by the way, either. I just watched this cartoon, and I think let's say you want to go with the deeper meanings. It'd be like, okay, so I'm going to introduce it. In Dr. Seuss's cartoon entitled The Sneetches, the writer showcases a message of you know, the story accomplishes this by blah 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 blah. This is important because blah 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 blah. Okay, so make your working thesis, and remember to also respond to at least one classmate's post. Next up, we have a current event. We have current event 3 already. Wowzers. Current event 3, yep, due by Sunday. Okay, so that's that. And okay, well, that's it for this week in terms of logistics. Do check out the other video for more details on the prompt itself.